What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Kevin Hoops Show. I am your host, Kevin Hoops, and we are getting right into things. We've got some big news recently, just announced last night. I just saw it and was like, I gotta make a video on it. Justin Gaethje versus Dustin Poirier for the BMF title. Just picture it. Just picture it right in your head. I know it seems unrealistic. We all thought the BMF title was never going to come back. We probably thought these two weren't going to face each other again because they've always been quote-unquote picky as rumors were going around. But I honestly think this is going to be a very exciting fight. Possibly fight of the year if these guys actually show up. Now, Justin Gaethje's been on quite a run recently, and honestly, so has Dustin Poirier. These guys in the past 2 to 3 years have made very big names for themselves, and I think just about anybody in the UFC community knows who these two are, and knows, I think, why. Just because these guys have delivered exciting fights time and time again, and constantly have proven people wrong. I mean, just look at the Dustin Poirier versus Conor McGregor kind of debacle. Conor McGregor comes back off of not fighting for about 3 to 4 years, I think. And then everybody is like, oh yeah, this is actually going to be a good fight. You know, Conor McGregor's beat Dustin once, while Dustin Poirier's been, though, currently going on a tear in the top of the division. And it's like, yeah, McGregor did that at one point, but how many times do you see people do that twice? I honestly think it was kind of stupid a little bit, even me included, that, you know, some people actually gave McGregor a shot. I think if you look at it from the third person, you know, kind of just looking at things truly how they are, I think it was obvious that Dustin Poirier was going to come back or not even come back. Dustin Poirier was just going to take the W. But either way, I do think that this is going to be an exciting fight, not only just because these guys have big names, but I think that these guys match up stylistically pretty well. I know that Justin Gaethje likes to really strike on the feet and likes to kind of thrive in that chaos and that kind of scrambled type of exchange when it comes to striking. And Dustin Poirier, I think, has really evolved as a fighter. I think in his last fight, he barely took any damage. I could be wrong on that. I do believe he took, you know, minimal damage against Michael Chandler in his last fight. I don't want to say that he took, you know, zero damage. I think it's very hard for fighters to take zero damage, but I think, you know, compared to how Michael Chandler looks, though, at the end of a lot of the majority of his fights, which is bloody as hell, I think the fact that Dustin Poirier came out there looking pretty decent after the fight was pretty good. And, you know, he got the win by submission, so, like, really, he really wasn't trying to, like, throw strikes necessarily on the ground. He was more or less looking for the submission, even though I think he kind of caught him and stunned him before he got that submission. But one thing that both of these two, there's actually two things that these guys have in common. Maybe even three if you want to really think about it. But both of these guys have fought Charles Oliveira when he had the title, and both of these guys lost against Charles Oliveira fighting for the title. So I do think that they are really close when it comes to skill level. I think both of these guys have somewhat similar styles, but also the amount of skill. It's not like Justin Gaethje or Dustin Poirier knows a lot more in one skill. I think these guys know a lot in a lot of different martial arts and can bring them together pretty well, and I think both of them do that just about equally. Like, that's honestly where I think both of these guys are. Another thing they've also both done, they've also both fought Khabib for the title and both lost against Khabib for the title. So, you know, just adding that factor in as well, I really do think these guys are pretty equal. Now, obviously, these guys have fought before. You know, they did fight back in April of 2018, I want to say, and Dustin Poirier did come out victorious. Just to look at the actual stats of that fight, Dustin Poirier had 179 total strikes. Justin Gaethje had 116 total strikes. When it came to significant strikes, Dustin Poirier had 174, Justin Gaethje had 115, so basically the same thing as total strikes. No takedowns, no significant submission attempts, and no reversals. So hats off to Dustin Poirier. Looks like it was just a strike fest for about 5 rounds, 4, and then the fourth where Justin Poirier caught Justin Gaethje. But I do think that this is going to be a pretty exciting fight. Will we see it end early? I think the possibility is higher than the fight actually going the distance with these two. These two are guys that are bringing an entertainment to the fights. These guys aren't just sitting back and moving left and moving right like a guy named fucking William Knight who delivered one of the most unentertaining main events I've ever fucking seen in my life. I'll never stop talking about you, but William Knight just for that reason alone. But either way, these guys are bringing top-notch fights to the UFC, and I think that this BMF belt title, specifically this fact that they're actually going to be fighting for a belt in July, is going to be a bazonkers. If that's even a fucking word, I don't even think I've used it before. Either way, Jorge Masvidal was the BMF champ, and now if it actually says for the vacant BMF title. So I don't know if they actually took that away from Jorge Masvidal. I don't know if they just were like, yo, make a new one. I don't really know. I doubt they took it away from Jorge Masvidal, but either way, I do think this begs the question, maybe we start to see these BMF fights once a year, twice a year, once every other year. I don't really know the best way about going about it, but I do think that the possibility for the BMF belt to be a thing in the UFC is an awesome thing to have, because for fights like this in specific, like this fight is exactly the type of fight you want to have for a BMF title. These guys have proven themselves time and time again running through the division and just not being able to get over that hump and actually get the title belt. I think it's a great opportunity for a lot of fighters. I think it can bring a lot of opportunity to a lot of fighters, not only in just, the money or the winning aspect, but actually the marketing and what you can do after you get that sort of belt. Because if you look at what Jorge Masvidal did, I know he had one of the most exciting knockouts in UFC history, which definitely can, help you a little bit. But I do think that the BMF belt, when he fought Nate Diaz, was possibly even bigger than that. Not only did Nate Diaz have a really big following behind him, but it was also for the BMF belt. The Rock was there around the arena and actually put the belt on him. I just think that there was a lot of hype behind that fight in specific, and I think the same thing can happen with Justin Gaethje versus Dustin Poirier. And especially with how these guys fight, I really do think that it is going to be an exciting one. I think it's exactly similar to Nate Diaz versus Jorge Masvidal. I think it's, two guys who know exactly what they're going to do in the fight and are probably going to be striking back and forth and giving us an entertaining ass fight. Now, Justin Gaethje has fought Dustin Poirier before and he's lost to him. Now, I'm not saying the same thing is going to happen, but, I do almost kind of favor Justin Gaethje maybe a little bit compared to Dustin Poirier. And the only reason I'm going to say that is because I feel like the Conor McGregor fights weren't that challenging for Dustin Poirier. I mean, Justin Gaethje was fighting Michael Chandler in 2021, Charles Oliveira in 2022, Rafael Fiziev in 2023, and that was just back in March. And Rafael Fiziev is a young up-and-comer in this division, kind of, and, has, showed potential to go, for that title shot. And Justin Gaethje is still that fucking gatekeeper that shut that shit down. Maybe this will be a number one contender fight as well, or something like that, for Islam Makhachev, because I believe the winner of this fight is going to have a lot of hype behind them. I think they're going to have a lot of fans behind them. I think they're going to be, breaking some barriers when it comes to, followers and whatnot, when it comes to, who else has been as big as McGregor? I'm not saying one of these guys are, but I'm saying that the potential is there. Especially for Dustin Poirier, he's fought Conor McGregor 3 times now. He's got some, recognition and hype just because of those fights. So, and not only that, but he won the fight. So, I mean, he's definitely known around the world somewhat as someone who's beat Conor McGregor. But I really do think that this fight's going to deliver, and I think that Justin Gaethje might have the upper hand a little bit. Dustin Poirier, don't get me wrong. Dustin Poirier has fought some pretty good guys. Maybe not as recent, like in March. I do believe he fought Michael Chandler back in November, if I'm remembering that correctly. And then he also fought Charles Oliveira back in 2021. But I really do think that, Justin Gaethje's just been a little bit more frequent in his fighting. Maybe not, a whole bunch more frequent or active, but I really do think that win over Rafael Fiziev was somewhat proving of, yeah, I still got it. You don't got to be worrying about this Rafael Fiziev because I'm going to have a title shot first. So hey, I'm fine with that, Justin Gaethje. As long as you show up on July 29th, we should be fucking cooking with peanut oil. Shout out to Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje. I'm sure it wasn't the easiest thing to get set up, but I do think that this is going to be one of the most entertaining fights we're going to see all year. I'm a big fan of both of these guys, so I'm not really leaning towards one or the other. I said Justin Gaethje's a little bit more in favor just because he beat Rafael Fiziev basically. But the win over Michael Chandler back in November for Dustin Poirier is just as equally good as of a win. But I mean, the loss from Charles Oliveira, I do think that Dustin Poirier has one more loss, more recent, but also has the McGregor wins right there. So I really don't think that it's that much of a big deal for him. And I mean, he is still, maybe the McGregor fights necessarily weren't too much bad for him. I know I was saying that a little bit earlier, but now that I'm thinking about it, he still had to train. He still had to do his regular training camp before the fight. And maybe winning against McGregor gave him a sort of confidence that he didn't really have before, because McGregor did have that win over him, and I'm not saying that that was in the back of his head all the time, but maybe it was just something that, hey, I am that guy a little bit, I can beat a guy like that. I can beat a guy like this. I can beat somebody that thinks they have all the money or thinks that they've done it all and blah, 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 blah. And having a win over a guy like that can give you a sort of confidence. So I do think that both of these guys are pretty equal in style and skill. And I think that both of them have a shot of winning this fight. Let me know in the comments who you think is going to win the BMF title. If you guys like this video, don't forget to hit that like button. If you are new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And with that, have a great fucking day.